The Oklahoma City Thunder are going back to the postseason for the first time in 2 years. That's the longest drought in Thunder franchise history, but it's over now as they play a postseason game on Wednesday as the glorious, wonderful Chicago Bulls and that sweet, sweet Prince Billy Donovan beat the tanking Dallas Mavericks, and the Thunder are back in the postseason. It's an emergency podcast. Let's celebrate.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. Joining me, fellow media member and editor-in-chief over at ThunderWire.com, Clemente Almanza. And we're here to celebrate the Thunder making it back to the postseason. I promised you on Friday's podcast that if they won, you'd get a bonus podcast. Not only are you getting a bonus podcast, you're getting Clemente Almanza on the podcast, which is just historic. It is just fantastic. It is something that is really a cherry on top of this postseason Sunday for today. Clemente, how you feeling as the Thunder are back in the postseason?
Oh man, the juices are flowing, Rylan. The juices are flowing. It's almost 11 o'clock right now, and the adrenaline just kicking in right now. I have a hard time believing I'm gonna have a good, healthy amount of sleep tonight with just how exciting it is that the Thunder are back in the play-in after a long, grueling 2-year drought.
Yeah, I mean the black eye, the league stuff, the 20 win projection this year stuff. I mean, it's been a wild time frame here of this 2-year drought. Let's just start with the fact that the Thunder are in this position and what that means. Listen, I'm not here for anything other than celebratory comments today. I'm not going to go as far as deleting them, but I will be disappointed in you if you tweet anything other than celebratory comments today about this Thunder team and about this situation. The Thunder, the youngest team in the NBA currently, the second youngest team in NBA history, do not have a top 5 pick on their roster, and they've gotten here to the postseason through a lot of adversity, through losing Shai for some games, through losing Kenrich Williams, who's one of their best rotational players for the rest of the season. Of course, losing their second overall pick before the season even started. They've seen Pokusevski, who we forget was a really good rotational piece for them prior to his injury, has not looked good since the injury. Same scenario with Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. They've been in situations where they've played really, 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 really well, like they did in January and February, and they've had weeks like last week where they played really bad. And so through the ups and the downs, this team overcame all of that and will be playing in the postseason next week. And I don't know if that'll be for only Wednesday or if they'll win Wednesday and play Friday or if they'll win both games and go to the actual playoffs. But no matter what it is, this team has gotten over that proverbial hump. And as I said earlier this week, they've made the reservation now. Count us in for the next 10 years of basketball and the next 10 years of postseason basketball, because this train is not slowing down anytime soon. This train is going to keep on rolling as you add Chet Holmgren back. It's going to keep on rolling as you add in some of those draft picks and make some trades and fill out that cap sheet, which is top 10 in the league right now in the NBA in terms of space that you can use this summer. It's all shaking out Thunder right now, and you have an all-NBA guy, all-NBA first-team guy, MVP caliber guy in SGA. You have these guys who look like they can be all-stars like J-Dub, and it's just an incredible day. So forget about any little nitpicking that you can do about this season, and just remember what the expectations were and what this team accomplished. Because you know what? Every team had to battle adversity. Every team got some wins over teams that weren't trying, as the Thunder did yesterday. These Mavericks had that same opportunity today. You know what they decided to do? They decided to pull the plug and not actually play, and then just have an all-out tank battle with Chicago. So the Thunder took care of business. They did what they had to do. And now we set up for Sunday's game, which we're going to preview at the end of the show today, for what's going to look like on Sunday for the Thunder and the Grizzlies. But overall, how important is it that this Thunder team got to the postseason, Clemente?
I think heading into the season, we all were kind of expecting that they were going to finish with a bottom 5, bottom 10 record easily. Both pundits and fans, and for the fact that they were able to blow that accomplishment out of the water with how they've been playing. I mean, I think it's super important just for in terms of getting experience and being able to play these high pressure games. And we kind of saw that at the Utah game as well, with the Thunder playing basically a must-win game, and they were able to get that one out, even though it was against Utah's backups. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this is super important. I know some people might like roll their eyes at the fact that the Thunder are going to get experience over adding another potential lottery pick, but like at the end of the day, that matters. I mean, we see with Shai's Instagram post, we see with the players after the wins that all of them have said that, yeah, making the play matters to them. Like that's their ultimate goal, and like for them to accomplish that, that's a great feat for such a young team.
I mean, that's the whole thing here. It goes beyond just this specific game, because to get to this game, you played in some of the most clutch games in the entire league. You've played in 43, 44 clutch time games this year as the youngest roster. That is experience in and of itself. You're going to get to play and prepare to play a game on Wednesday. And there's no more of this cat and mouse game. There's no more of this, are they going to, go all out? No, Wednesday's a literal must-win game. You're in the postseason. Nothing else matters but winning Wednesday's game. So you're going to get to game plan for another team, a specific team, and you're going to get to lock in on them and try your best to counteract what they want to do. And they're going to do the same to you. So like in the nature of an NBA season, not every game is game planned for. Like that might sound surprising, but like, you're more so focused on how to correct your own mistakes that you made last game or 3 games ago or the week before. Whereas now it's a whole different game where you're focusing on how do we take away what they do good? And then they're focusing on how do they take away what you do good? And so you get to see how your young guys react to that, how your young guys respond, how they absorb a game plan, how they execute a game plan, how they adjust to game plans working against them. They did that very well on Thursday against Utah. Whenever Utah came out in that zone, it gave them fits, and Utah went on that massive run into halftime. And then after the half, the Thunder beat the zone, and they were able to eventually swell that lead to 20 points and blow them out. So they've already handled that in a way in that game. So this is experience, and as you mentioned too, these players wanted to be in the postseason. SGA went out on a limb and put on his Instagram caption after one of those wins that the play-in's coming, he's got to play in it. And like, it matters. It matters. And guess what? You don't got to listen to this summer. This summer, you don't got to listen to people saying, well, the Thunder never win. And when are we going to get to see Shai play in the postseason? Shai's in the postseason. Let's see what he does. Like Shai's in there. The Thunder have gotten him there, even despite all the obstacles that they faced. And even despite the fact that whenever you lost Chet in August, no one would have blinked an eye if the Thunder decided, hey, we want another lottery pick instead of going for it. They let the season play out. They burned their assumptions and saved their predictions and declared themselves, and they did everything they told you they were going to do. They gave it to you on a silver platter and told you what the plan was. They went out there, they executed it, and they declared themselves as a team that's going to be in the postseason for a long time. It doesn't matter if they lose on Wednesday. It doesn't matter if they make the playoffs. It doesn't matter if they go to the first round or not. It doesn't matter if they pull a We Believe Warriors and beat the Nuggets. It doesn't matter. None of it matters past this point. It's the fact that you survived an 82-game marathon, and at the end of it, you get to play in the postseason. And that's incredible value for the second youngest team ever and the youngest team in this league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we all kind of wait for the other shoe to drop with this Thunder team to the point like, all right, well, they're going to eventually start falling out of the playoff race, and that just never happened. And it's just been surreal just seeing it play out. I mean, you and me have covered the team on a day-to-day basis, and to be able to experience this with this young team has been a pretty amazing accomplishment for both the franchise, for both the front office and the players. And it speaks a lot. I mean, like you mentioned, like the Thunder over the last month or so have been getting like a lot more positive media attention, national media wise. And nights like tonight really justify the hype Shai's getting for MVP and most improved player, J-Dub's getting for Rookie of the Year, and Daynald's getting for Coach of the Year.
It's awesome to see that media coverage. Also, obviously, it was funny to begin with that somehow the ire turned to Oklahoma City of all teams about the tanking over the last couple of seasons, and the Black Eye of the League stuff from the Sirius XM guy, John Hollinger, projected this team to win 20 games, which was 4 less than they won last year. And again, I don't begrudge anyone, to be clear whenever I say this, I don't begrudge anyone for in the preseason not expecting the Thunder to make the postseason. No one did. But 20 wins was just asinine. Like, let's just be frank about it. Winning 4 less games for a team that's never regressed in win total under Mark and in this current rebuild was just ridiculous, even after Chet Holmgren got hurt. And they not only didn't regress, but they progressed, and they're now sitting on the precipice of a weird game on Sunday, where if they do win it, they would win 40 games this season. 40 games this season if they were able to win on Sunday. That is going to be a wild time. We'll talk about why Sunday's game is a little bit different coming up. But first, want to tell you about our good friends over at Nissan Aria, folks. Nissan Aria. I mean, it's just great. I mean, it truly is incredible. And we told you on Friday who the Nissan Aria player of the week is. It's Aaron Wiggins. But for Saturday, let's shake it up a little bit and do a new Nissan Aria player of the week, because Wiggins still deserves all of the credit in the world. That's obvious. But I mean, Kobe White was awesome. Patrick Williams was awesome. I'm gonna give it to Patrick Williams and Kobe White for this next week coming up, because the Bulls were able to help the Thunder secure that playoff spot. The Nissan Aria is fantastic. It's electric. It's brilliantly fierce. It's fiercely elegant. It's stunningly powerful, and it packs a pin you to your seat punch with premium intelligence all-in-one EV. It's the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at NissanAriaUSA.com. Clemente, we're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Go check out Locked On NBA. We're going to have a lot of previews for you, including about the Thunder throughout this week. We've already got our scheduled previews written up and executing them Sunday night, so that'll be a lot of fun. But Clemente, the Thunder have made the postseason. What to you has stood out the most about this season for OKC?
I think the obvious answer is Shai's ascension to a superstar. I think if you would ask someone before the season that Shai would have the type of season that he's had, I think most people would have thought that person was being the biggest homer out there. And for the fact that Shai is averaging over 30 points per game on such high efficiency, I think it's like at over 60% true shooting. And I think he broke the franchise record for most 30-point games in the season at 45 against Utah. For all that happened this season, and for Shai to stay relatively healthy for the most part, I mean, that's such a huge positive, because this season basically guarantees you that you're going to have a all-NBA, top 20, top 15 type player for the next at least 5 years. And that's big in this league, where a team goes as far as their best player goes, and I think the Thunder can go pretty far with Shai as their best guy.
Shai's been awesome. I mean, the leap he's taken, scoring, defending, huge leap. He's taken a big leap as a passer, which I've tried to point out a lot throughout this season. Handles has gotten better, and we all know what he can do with the ball in his hands. I mean, it's just awesome to watch Shai. To see Jalen Williams look like a potential rookie of the year, and I know that the votes have probably been casted since October for Paolo, but the fact that he's even in a conversation where you can have this debate and not get laughed at, like where you can say, hey, I think that Jalen Williams has a shot at this, and not get laughed out of the room, is remarkable, especially if Chet is who we think Chet is. Like, if Chet's who we think Chet is, then this ascent by J-Dub makes this rookie class a historic one. I mean, it truly does. And the beautiful thing about it is, I don't think that anything Jalen Williams has accomplished this season gets taken away by Chet. Like, I don't think that anything that he has done this year is impacted by Chet coming back. So, like, he's able to play well without the ball in his hands. He's able to play well off action, and he's able to play well while not being the aggressor. So if Chet Holmgren does come in and take more touches away, that still allows J-Dub to thrive and plays a game that he's more comfortable in, it seems like. I mean, Mark's talked about it, how, they've tried to really pull him out of that, passive play with the flow type of player and make him more of an aggressive player. And so allowing Chet to slide him back into a role he's more comfortable in could open the floor for him some more. Obviously, the spacing that Chet provides is great too, and so I don't think that it conflates anything with Chet coming back. And I say that to say I don't think that this breakout is because Chet's not there. I think that this breakout is because J-Dub's a really good player, and that's even more important. Obviously, the Isaiah Joe stuff has been awesome this year. To have Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins on minimum deals, and they play that way, is spectacular. I mean, you have two really good role players on minimum contracts. You can't do better than that in a team building standpoint, especially as you start to have to pay these guys. Being able to have a front office that can find guys like that can find impactful rotational players on the minimum, is going to only increase in importance as this rebuild progresses, as this core progresses, as the money gets bigger for your star players. And so the track record being there, the foundation being there, is really important. And agents seeing, hey, it's worked out for these guys whenever they go to OKC helps a lot too. In the second round, whenever a prospect might demand, hey, don't draft me, I want to go undrafted and I want to sign with OKC. Like, that stuff does matter. That stuff does happen a lot. So we'll see how much this progresses. But overall this season, it's just been impressive to watch them run their race, as Mark would say, and keep their head down and do everything the right way. And then it ends up adding up to the point you're in the postseason. The Thunder didn't take any shortcuts. The Thunder didn't make a big trade deadline acquisition. They didn't go out there and get any sort of patchwork done. They just kept playing their style of basketball. They kept playing the way that they intend to play in the future, even without Chet, even whenever you lose Kenrich Williams. You saw that trend continue, even though he was gone. Like, the Thunder kept doing what they wanted to do, and it ended up getting rewarded in terms of like the win total, in terms of the postseason. But their process still worked, and that's encouraging for sustained success as well. Much less the fact that you're going to add in so much talent coming up. But Sunday's game gets really weird now after the results that happened today. So we'll continue to tease that. But Clemente, we're watching this team and we're in awe of this team, and they still have such a pathway available to them of this play-in tournament, where they're going to play either Minnesota, who has had moments of dysfunction, or they're going to play a Zion-less Pelicans team. How far can this Thunder team get in the play-in tournament now that we're here? Now that we've seen pretty much a whole season unfold, there's still a game out there for these teams, but pretty much whole season unfold. How far do you think that this team can get?
Honestly, it looks like that they're gonna end up playing some combination of the Pelicans, Lakers, and Timberwolves. Like, honestly, just looking at those three teams, like, I just don't know how you can feel like 100% sure that they don't have a legit chance to get one of the 7 or 8 spots and then advance to the actual playoffs and then play a tough physical first round series against the Nuggets or the Grizzlies and push them to 5, 6, 7 games. None of those three teams above OKC, while they're all, like you mentioned, formidable opponents, it's not like any of those teams are guaranteed losses for OKC. And we've seen examples throughout the entire season. This season specifically where they've played against these teams and they've managed to put up a good fight, even win games against them. I mean, the Lakers, for example, they went to LA, beat the Lakers on the night LeBron passed Kareem. Mark mentioned that as an example of a game of consequence the other night. And then the Pelicans, for OKC to beat the Pelicans early this season as well. And then same case with the Wolves. We have evidence that supports your theory if you want to choose OKC beating whoever they play in the 9-10 matchup, and then whoever they play in the 7-8 matchup.
I think that the ceiling of this Thunder team in this postseason is exactly that. It's making it through the play-in tournament, and you get to go play the Nuggets, and you steal a game from the Nuggets, and you force them to play a tough 5, 6, 7 game series. I mean, there is such a thing as a tough 5 game series. I mean, you can do it where you play them close every game, but just lose, which is common with young teams. And I think that the example I've been using all season has been Memphis. Like, whenever Memphis made the postseason the first time, and this is their pathway. They got through the play-in tournament, and then they went to go play Utah, and Utah, of course, was a really good team that year, They ended up beating Memphis. Utah did, but Ja had that baseline dunk and kind of was an exclamation point on their season of like, oh, these Memphis guys, they're coming. They're becoming really strong here the next few years. That's the kind of ceiling OKC has in this week, and that's valuable. It's valuable to allow yourself to have some of that momentum, have some of that confidence heading into the offseason, especially whenever you have a blue chip player waiting in the wings. Like the beautiful thing about this is you're not only dependent upon summer progression, which this Thunder roster has seen every player on their roster over the course of a summer get better. Over the course of a summer, you've seen SGA get better year over year, summer over summer. In his one summer so far, Josh Giddey's gotten better year over year. Like you've seen the talent on this roster get better. Going back to college, J-Dub got better each and every year, continued to build upon his success in college. You hope he does the same thing this summer. So, like, not only do you have that, but you also aren't looking and like turning over every stone to figure out, okay, what do we add next? What you add next is a blue chip prospect who many thought was the best player last year in the draft in Chet Holmgren. That's what you add next, and then you work from there. Plus, you're going to have a good pick in this deep draft class, and you're going to have ammo to trade up in this draft class if you so choose. And we saw a willingness from OKC to do that last year whenever they traded into the first round to get Usman Jang. So like if they target a guy, they'll be willing to go get him. So it's really encouraging, and that's part of why, and that's really the main part of why, even if they lose on Wednesday, it doesn't truly impact anything. It wouldn't even really be a bummer. It would just be a thing that happened, and you get a good postseason experience out of it, and you get to say, hey, we made the postseason this season after being ridiculed for the last 2 years. It's felt like a decade because of how much that the ridicule's been piled on OKC. This is just awesome. And yeah, the ceiling, I think, is a first-round exit, and it would be in like 6 games, but that's still incredibly valuable for this team and awesome for this team. So let's talk about the Bulls beating the Mavericks and securing this bid for OKC and how that makes Sunday's game against Memphis for the home finale a wild one. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NBA podcast. Clemente, we're back, and the Bulls did it. It did not look like they would do it. It did not look like they'd pull it out. It was a brutal first 2-3 quarters for Chicago, but they were able to beat the Dallas Mavericks. Again, shout out Kobe White, shout out, Patrick Williams, shout out Billy Donovan. But overall, this win secures OKC's position in the postseason. Memphis has won as well, so they've secured the second seed in the Western Conference. So presumably Memphis will rest players on Sunday. So let's take care of that scenario. You're not going to see Memphis's A team on Sunday if everything goes according to plan. For OKC, they've seen SGA deal with some injuries down the stretch of this season. He looked gassed on Thursday at times against Utah. This can be an opportunity where OKC, who has no shot to move up, they have no shot to move down, they're locked into 10, to rest some players and to get some much-needed rest specifically for SGA. And if you want to look at it also from a different angle, besides just rest, which is the most important part of this is rest, if the Thunder do lose on Sunday, because they're resting guys and because they're getting prepared for Wednesday, and they don't make the postseason, in the terms of, they don't make the first round, the playoffs, then at that point they would have the 10th best lottery odds. They'd be tied for the Mavericks and have a little coin flip, which is actually a ping pong ball drawing for the 10th best odds in the lottery. So like it would be a double-edged sword of like you get rest, but you also get a security blanket in case you don't survive through the play-in tournament to better your odds whenever that all takes place. Because right now it'd be 11-10 for OKC and Dallas. If the Thunder lose on Sunday, it would be both tied for 10, and then it'd be up to Chicago too if there's a 3-way tie, and they do a kind of a little ping pong ball drawing to see who gets the actual odds and where everything shakes out. So with all that being said, if I put you as head coach of the Thunder, God help us, what would you choose to do on Sunday?
Yeah, and like when you were shouting out Bulls players there for the one today, you forgot to mention former OKC Blue legend Alex Caruso, which kind of segues into like what I would do if I was Mark Danon as the game. When it comes to whether resting your team or resting your or playing your starters in order to like build quote unquote momentum in these type of situations, I always lean on resting the guys, especially someone like Shai. Like you mentioned, especially in the Jazz game, we kind of saw Shai kind of running on fumes there. That's probably a mix of him having to play so many amount of high leverage minutes, so many amount of high usage possessions, along with the fact that the Jazz are playing this funky 1-3-1 zone defense for most of the game. So I know Shai probably won't admit it publicly, but like if he can get a chance to rest for 5 consecutive days, I think that would be huge for him, especially since he's probably still dealing with that abdominal strain that Mark mentioned after the All-Star break, and being able to rest that, and like I said, give him 5 consecutive days off, I feel like that would pay dividends for their Wednesday matchup in the play-in game against whoever they end up playing.
Yeah, I think that the smart business decision from all fronts is to rest your guys. Now, what does that look like? I think that it could look as something like what the Mavericks did today with Luka, where you play them. It's the home finale. It could be the last time you ever play in front of this home crowd for the season. If you don't make it through the play-in tournament, it will be the last time you play in front of a home crowd. And so, he plays, but he plays a quarter, and then he checks out. Standing ovation time. Thanks for everything. Just in case one could say it in the playoffs. Great season, and then wish you the best throughout this next week for the play-in tournament. I think that could be a way that it looks rest-wise, rather than like out, and they don't even play at all. They're just out from the lengthy injury report or a CVS receipt, as Clemente so claimed that he coined the first time. But ultimately, either way you slice it, I think that would be the best move. Either just don't play him a single minute and just let him be in street clothes and enjoy it from the sidelines, or play these guys in the first quarter, let them have their moment, let them have their kind of send off, just in case this is the last time that they play in front of the home crowd. And then you play it smart the last 3 quarters, and it turns into a blue versus hustle game. And luckily, we've covered 3 or 4 of those already this season between these two teams with the way that the G League schedule shook out. So we're going to be really well equipped to watch Kenny Lofton drop 50 on Sunday, but we watched him do it against the Blue earlier. Clemente, this is awesome. This is just fun stuff all the way around. What's your prediction for Sunday? Now, by the time you're listening to this, we'll probably know the answer because practice will have already happened, and we'll kind of have asked the questions. But are they going to rest against Memphis? And are they going to win against Memphis? And I want both those answers independent of each other.
I think the play it smart, like you said, like the smart and business approach is to rest the guys. And I think they end up resting Shai at the minimum. In terms of winning, I think they probably end up dropping this game just because they're not going to have Shai. And like we've seen how the team looks like when Shai isn't playing, and like a lot of times not pretty. But with that said, we will see Ousmane Dieng masterclass where he's playing 30 plus minutes, and he's out there getting a 20-point, 10 rebound double and giving fans hope that he could potentially be a future piece of this young core.
I'm ashamed of you for one, being that you didn't say a Jared Butler triple-double, because that's what I think is going to happen. I think Jared Butler's going to go out there and absolutely dominate this game. Folks, if you've read on Thunder's Intentions, if you listen to this podcast, you know how high I am on Jared Butler. That's not just on the podcast. I talk these guys' ears off at the Thunder games about how Jared Butler can really be something. And I think that it really throws Mark off whenever I ask him about Jared Butler. He's like, why is this guy asking about Jared Butler? Like, what is this guy doing? Get out of here. You're a loser. But I do think Jared Butler is going to get some redemption, because fans were talking reckless about Jared Butler a week ago. And I think that he needs some redemption on Sunday. He deserves some redemption on Sunday. I think that it's going to be one of those games where it doesn't matter if you win or lose in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, there's a little percent of you that's like, well, might as well lose just as an insurance policy for if you don't make it through the play-in tournament, kind of like a life insurance policy if you don't make it to the play-in tournament. But ultimately, it'd be nice either way. It'd be nice to win and just have that nice round 40 on your win total. That'd be pretty cool for this young team. And then if you lose, we laid out all the pros of losing on Sunday. Either way, I don't think that Shai will play 30 minutes. In fact, I assure you, and I will guarantee you, Shai will not play 30 minutes this season. Sam, I know you're listening. Don't spite me on this one. Don't play him 30 minutes just because you can. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just make it 29 at the most. He's not going to play 30 minutes, though. I think that even if he does play, it'll just be a nice little send off, a nice little hat tip to the fans who showed up on Easter and made it up there in a scramble after all their festivities and Easter egg hunts were done. And then you go into the next week in the play-in tournament, and we'll see where that's going to be at. It's either going to be Minnesota first or New Orleans first, and then we'll go from there. So, going to be a fun week of basketball. Going to have you covered 5 days a week and after every single game. So it's a lot of fun. We're going to stay through the offseason that way. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on any other podcasting platform. Clemente, thank you for joining us in this celebration of Thunder life. We're going to have another bet paid off coming up. I think I'm going to post that tomorrow, which you know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be an interesting one, Clemente. I've got to record that one for you and Nick. But Clemente, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I mean, like I said, just enjoy the ride, man. Like, I think what makes this postseason or just play and run that much more fun is the fact that the Thunder did it without getting external help outside of like Sam kind of looking his way into getting a rotation piece in Dario Saric. If you just look at the Utah game, I mean, the bench played a big role in that, and like the four guys that led that were Aaron Wiggins, who was the 55th pick in his class, Lindy Waters, who was an undrafted two-way player, Dario Saric, like I mentioned, guy who was just traded to OKC just to make the finances work, and Isaiah Joe, who was a late training camp addition that was an afterthought. The fact that Sam can find those guys and with some luck involved as well, I mean, it just increases your margin for error when it comes to like hitting on your actual first round picks. And I think that's like another factor as to like just how much more as to like why this Thunder team is so exciteful and like why fans are like so optimistic about it is because that OKC's been able to hit both their high end first round picks and find hidden gems like you mentioned earlier.
Clemente, thanks for joining us. This was a great emergency podcast. I'll see you tomorrow at practice. And we both got to make a long trip all from opposite directions. So I hope that the Saturday morning traffic is not too bad getting into Thunder Ion tomorrow afternoon. So until after Sunday's game, be good and be good to one another.